Some athletes are remembered because they won championships. Some are remembered because of statistics, the Hall of Fame resumes, the trophies, the highlight reels. But every once in a while, a player becomes something bigger than sports. Not because of what they accomplished on the field necessarily, but because of what they represented off of it. Because every once in a while, an athlete reminds people what strength actually looks like. And for an entire generation of sports fans, that athlete was named Eric Berry. Before the start of our story, before the fame, before becoming one of the most inspirational figures in sports, Eric Berry was simply one of the best football players in America. Born in Fairborn, Georgia, Berry grew up around football, and from the beginning, people knew he was different. This guy was fast, instinctive, physical, the kind of athlete that coaches dream about having on their squad. Coming out of Creekside High School, Berry was one of the top recruits in the nation, and eventually, though to my displeasure, he took his talents to the University of Tennessee. And that, my friends, is where everything changed. At Tennessee, Eric Berry didn't just play safety, he took over football games. Quarterbacks feared throwing his directions. Running backs feared running up the middle, and fans, well, the fans couldn't take their eyes off of him. In just 3 seasons at Tennessee, Berry recorded 14 interceptions. He returned 5 of them for touchdowns, and he won the Jim Thorpe Award. He was a unanimous All-American, and he became one of the greatest defensive players in SEC history. He wasn't just good. He was electric. In the 2010 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs selected Eric Berry with the 5th overall pick. And almost immediately, he changed the identity of their franchise. The Chiefs you know and love today are strongly because of Eric Berry. Berry played football with emotion. Every hit, every interception, every celebration, they felt personal. And Chiefs fans loved him for it. He quickly became the leader of the Kansas City Chiefs defense, a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 3-time first-team All-Pro, and he was one of the smartest safeties in football, one of the toughest and one of the most respected players in the NFL. By 2013, Arrowhead Stadium had become one of the loudest places in sports again, and Eric Berry, well, he was right at the center of it. Then came 2014. Late in the season, Eric Berry started feeling pain in his chest. At first, the doctors thought it would just be dehydration, maybe exhaustion, at worst an infection. But after more testing, everything changed. Eric Berry had been diagnosed with cancer, more specifically Hodgkin's lymphoma. Suddenly, football didn't matter anymore. The interceptions, the Pro Bowls, the contracts, none of it mattered. One of the toughest players in the NFL was now fighting for his life. And for the first time, football fans everywhere stopped seeing Eric Berry as just an athlete and started seeing him as human. Chemotherapy, treatments, pain, uncertainty, fear. Eric Berry was facing something bigger than football. But even during treatment, he never stopped believing he'd return. Most people hoped he would recover. Very few believed he would ever play football again. But Eric Berry, he wasn't interested in being average. And in 2015, just months after completing treatment, Eric Berry returned to the NFL. And somehow, against all odds, he came back better than he ever was.
What a scene here. Eric Berry taking the field. Declared cancer-free just a couple of months ago. The last Chief to be introduced. And for more on this remarkable story, Eric.
In 2015, Eric Berry recorded 61 tackles, 2 interceptions, 10 passes defensed, and helped lead the Kansas City Chiefs to the playoffs. But the statistics couldn't fully explain what people were watching, because every time Berry stepped onto the field, It felt bigger than football. Then came Atlanta. December 4th, 2016, Berry intercepted Matt Ryan, returned it for a touchdown, then later stopped the game-winning two-point conversion attempt. It was one of the greatest games of his career, and one of the greatest comeback stories that sports have ever seen. That's why Eric Berry mattered. Not just because he was some very cool football player that played football at an elite level, but because he gave people perspective, hope, strength. Chiefs fans didn't just root for Eric Berry. They believed in him because his story reminded people that toughness isn't about taking hits. Sometimes toughness is getting up when life hits you harder than football ever could. Eric Berry may never fully get the recognition he deserves. He may never receive the headlines that some of the other NFL legends do, but for the people who watched him, for the fans who saw his journey, Eric Berry became something far more important than football player. He became proof. Proof that resilience is real. Proof that courage exists. Proof that sometimes human beings are far more capable than what we imagine. And that is why Eric Berry was more than just an athlete. Thank you.